So picture this. It's the 13th century, and a brand new power has just arrived in India. They're not just conquerors, they're builders. But how on earth do you stamp your identity on a land that's already packed with ancient, incredible wonders? Well, today, we're going to dig into how the slave dynasty tackled that very question in stone, and in the process, created a whole new architectural language that would echo for centuries.
I mean, really think about that for a second. You've just set up shop. How do you make your mark? How do you project power, faith, and a whole new culture onto a landscape that already has its own magnificent architectural traditions? That's the puzzle at the heart of what we're exploring today.
So we're zooming into a very specific slice of time here, the 13th century. This is the era of the slave dynasty or Mamluk Dynasty. It all kicks off in 1206 with Qutb-ud-din Aibak, and it runs through key figures like Iltutmish and Balban before wrapping up in 1290. It's not a super long period, but wow, the amount of architectural change they packed into those decades is just staggering.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. You've basically got a collision of two completely different building philosophies. The local Indian style was trabeate. Think post and beam. It's all about stacking massive carved stones and columns, kind of like giant Lego blocks. But the incoming Islamic tradition was arcuate, all about the soaring arch and the grand dome, using mortar to create these huge open spaces inside. These are two totally different ways of thinking about how to build something.
So how do they start? Well, the first phase under the founder, Qutb-ud-din Aibak, was all about one thing: pragmatism. It wasn't about grand new designs, it was about working with what was already on the ground.
Right out of the gate, the number one priority was symbolic. Aibak had to build a mosque, and he named it Quwwat-ul-Islam, which literally means the power of Islam. This wasn't just a place to pray. This was a massive statement, a flag planted firmly in the soil of their new capital, Delhi. And they moved fast. Here's the playbook. They built right on top of existing sacred sites. They dismantled dozens of Hindu and Jain temples, reused the columns and beams, slapped up a new wall, the Qibla, to face Mecca, and then to face the beautiful human and animal sculptures to fit their own religious rules. It was a rapid, powerful, and very direct way of repurposing the landscape. And what you get is this incredible hybrid building, the Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque. The floor plan, totally Islamic. A big rectangular courtyard, prayer halls, but the materials, the actual building blocks, are what's known as spolia, reused pieces from the old temples. If you go there today and look closely at the pillars, you can still see these classic Hindu designs like bells and flowers carved into the stone. It's literally two worlds fused into one. So here's the clever part. They wanted Islamic-style arches, but their local builders didn't know the technique for a true arch yet. So they improvised, using a local method called a corbelled arch. See how it works? It's not one cohesive structure. They just stacked stones, each one sticking out a little further than the one below it, until they met at the top. It looks like an arch, but it's really built with that old post and beam logic. A brilliant workaround, really.
And right next to that mosque, they built this, a monument that just screams power. Soaring 72.5 meters into the sky, this is the Qutub Minar. Part victory tower, part minaret for the call to prayer, it was an undeniable symbol of the new regime.
I mean, just look at these numbers. It's a tapering tower with 5 distinct levels and nearly 400 steps inside. It's huge at the bottom, over 14 meters wide, and gets incredibly slender at the top, less than 3 meters across. It's made of this beautiful red and buff sandstone, and it's covered in these intricate bands of Arabic script. It's just this amazing mix of raw power and delicate art.
Okay, so let's move on. That was phase 1. Next up is Aibak's successor, Iltutmish. This is where we see that early adaptation really start to evolve into a more deliberate, refined style.
Iltutmish wasn't just adding on to what Aibak did, he was leveling up. His builders got way better at making those arch shapes, even if they were still corbelled, and, maybe more importantly, he started building completely new types of structures, things that hadn't really been seen in India before.
And here are some of his greatest hits. He built his own tomb, which was the first in India to use something called squinches, these clever little arches in the corners to put a round dome on a square room. Super innovative. He also built Sultan Gari, the very first Turkish-style tomb in the country. And he even built massive public works, like the Haz-i-Shamsi, a giant artificial lake. You can see the shift, right? From just making a statement to building a lasting, functional city.
But hang on,
Because the biggest leap forward, the moment that changes the entire game, comes a little bit later, under a ruler named Balban. This is really the climax of our story. It's kind of funny, you know? You'd think the most pivotal moment in Indian architecture would be in some grand palace. Nope, it's hiding in plain sight, in the humble ruins of a sultan's tomb in Delhi. Because this is it. Right here, for the very first time on Indian soil, we see a true arch. Not the corbelled imitation, the real deal.
So what makes a true arch so special? Well, it's pure engineering genius. Instead of just stacking stones, you use these special wedge-shaped stones called voussoirs. They all push against each other, and the whole thing is locked into place by that central keystone at the top. This design brilliantly transfers all the weight outwards and down, which means you can build way, way bigger openings than you ever could with a simple post and beam. It was a total game changer.
The impact of this one piece of technology was just massive. Balban's tomb is what officially kicks off the true arcuate style in India. It also had the first true dome, though it's collapsed now. This one tomb marks the turning point, the moment the subcontinent's architecture pivots away from columns and beams towards the incredible arches and domes that would define it for the next several hundred years. Think about it. There's a direct line from this ruined arch to the Taj Mahal. So as we wrap things up here, what we've really seen is this super fast journey, a journey from just adapting what was already there to creating something completely new and revolutionary. This timeline really puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? You start with Aibak, who adapts using those clever core-built arches. Then Iltutmish comes in and starts to refine everything, introducing new building types. And finally, Balban drops the big one, the technological breakthrough of the true arch, which just blows the doors open for the future. When you boil it all down, the story of the slave dynasty's architecture is a story of fusion. It started by literally mashing together the broken pieces of two different cultures, and it ended by creating a brand new, totally unique style that belonged to both and neither at the same time. And that kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? We just saw how an entire architectural identity was built, quite literally, from the scraps of what came before. It really makes you wonder, what fusions are happening all around us right now? In our music, our food, our ideas? What new cultures are being forged today from the pieces of our interconnected world? Something to think about.